What's up? This is EJK. This is going to be a video between TY and Deer. We're going to be taking a look at how TY uses this bio-Witamine composition effectively. In this game, no liberators were made, just a FYI. And the reason for that is because the way that this map is laid out, sieging up liberators can be the sieged up liberators, I should say, can be easily circumvented, making liberator play here a lot less effective than a map such as Dusk Towers or Runes of Endion. Now, Frost has a lot of similar attributes to, I would say, Frozen Temple, Coral Compound, kind of blanking on maps here, but essentially Frost as a map can be defined as a 3-base map in which you will struggle to take your 4th base in these positions at least. So with that in mind, and both players knowing this, like it works both ways. It's very hard to establish a 4th base in these positions for either player. The Biomine unit composition becomes a very good solution to this very limited eco-style type game that you will see on Frost. I did a video about Maru last week, and what really defined Maru's play in my eyes was he knows exactly where the best spot to attack will be, in the best position, and to get the best amount of damage or maximum amount of damage possible with the army that he has throughout the map. Now TY's style I can define as saying that he understands the weakest point where Protoss is, not in micro and in battle and engagements, but TY's expertise really falls down into economy, where the Protoss is weak economically, and where Protoss starts to struggle for things such as money and such as taking another expansion. I paused the game right here because before I get too off topic, I just want to quickly go over TY's the reasoning behind TY's double Hellion and Reaper scouting. Now TY is always going to be sacrificing these 2 Hellions, and the reason why is because he wants to get a good scout off on Deer's base. The bonus reasons why this is good is because TY he has a build now that is able to punish a Protoss player for playing quote-unquote greedy. So if Deer tried to skip a Mothership Core, this early timing scout attack would essentially win him the game right then and there. Now, because Deer made 2 Adepts, he has a 3rd Adept popping out, but the 2 Hellions are already in his base. Photon Overcharge isn't enough to cover all of the bases of Deer, so TY is still able to get a decent amount of damage done against Deer because Deer went for the double Adept opening, which is still a pretty popular opening. Now Deer could have mitigated the damage by being more prepared for this type of thing. TY has not. This is by no means. This should be by no means a surprise for Deer to see TY open up like this. So taking a bit more damage than expected, and TY is able to scout the Robo Bay as well, and he scouts the Robo facility, so he knows exactly what Deer is doing. And as a player, as TY has his 3rd command center up, he's going to be wanting to play defensively. And Legacy of the Void isn't a game where you can do one build. There's a one build fits all shoe size. That doesn't exist anymore. What does exist is being able to capitalize on very good scouting information so that you can cut different corners. So in this case, TY knows that it's a robotics facility and a robo bay coming up. So he knows 100% there's going to be no DTs, and he knows 100% that blink stalkers are not going to be on the way for a very long time, or in fact a Twilight Council at all for that matter. So there won't be any glaive depth attacks coming in, and there won't be a massive gateway explosion off of 2 bases right away because of the investment into the robo bay. With all of that knowledge, TY can cut many corners, such as he can delay his engineering bay, he can delay marauder production. I'll talk about that in a second. And he doesn't have to save up scans, he doesn't have to build any turrets, he doesn't have to have his units in defensive position to defend against oracles, and same with the Widow Mine. He can place his Widow Mine as we see on the minimap right here. That's where his Widow Mine is placed. He can place it in a very offensive position because he knows he doesn't need that Widow Mine for defense against an Oracle. Now, if we look on the production tab, TY has about 19 Marines, and he's continuing to build Marines. Now, what that does for him is allows him to really focus his economy on production of units, or production of buildings rather than units. A Marine is significantly cheaper than a Marauder. Marauder is 100 minerals and 25 gas. So with that extra 50 minerals and 25 gas that TY doesn't need to build because of the fact that he knows exactly what Deer is doing. He knows that Blink is going to be delayed for a very long time, so that he doesn't need a very high Marauder count to defend against any Blink all-ins. He knows that he can this is essentially cutting corners with his economy and being able to reinvest the money he would have used in army in faster production. So faster barracks, he gets his 3rd and 4th gas up faster. He's actually only on 3 gases, so he gets his 2nd and 3rd gas up faster. He gets to start his +1 on time without having to cut any production cycles. And he gets his tech on time either. He can afford all of this because he made 19 Marines and 0 Marauders. If you make even a couple Marauders, every Marauder you make starts to slow down your building production and powering up stage, essentially. So Deer not able to find too much damage with his disruptor drops. TY has a very good understanding of how to defend against these Warp Prism drops. First of all, in order to defend against the Warp Prism drops, he knows the main attack paths by air in which the Warp Prism tends to travel, and the main areas that the Warp Prism may like to be. He also has a very good scout. Like right now, he knows that the Warp Prism is in the middle of the map, and he sees the Warp Prism going towards the upper end of the map as well. So he knows that the Warp Prism is going to be, it has no chance. Okay, so he knows that when he saw the Warp Prism going this way, he knows that the Warp Prism is going to be in this area, and so, I don't know why I did that, X. So he knows that the Warp Prism is either going to attack over there or attack over there. The Warp Prism has no ability to attack there for the time being, and upon receiving the information of knowing where the Warp Prism is, TY is able to quickly react to the Warp Prism in time and essentially not be caught off guard and allowing a disruptor shot to go off, because that's really where the damage starts to pile up, is when you get caught off guard and you just don't react fast enough and you end up taking more damage than you should have. So very good zoning out by TY, and the Warp Prism by Deer flies over the watchtower again, so a bit sloppy, and he's able to shoo it away even more, and getting the shield off the Warp Prism essentially shuts the Warp Prism down for a full like 60 seconds or so, or until whenever the Warp Prism is able to regain its shields. Like now it can barely go anywhere because now the damage that it takes, it's not going to heal up. There's a couple things going on right now. So I want to emphasize that TY still is not taking his gas in his main base right there. That gas geyser is empty, so he's still on 5 gases. So he's really, his 3cc build style has really emphasized maximum mineral production, and those minerals are used to make Marines defensively and to get his 5 barracks up as fast as possible. And I haven't started talking about the unit composition yet. We see on the production tab, oh my gosh, this is so annoying that does that. But we see on the production tab that he's adding 2 more barracks. Those are his, I believe, 5th and 7th, or 6th and 7th barracks. I could be mistaken though. But we also see him start Widowmine production as well. Oh, and oh, this battle. So what TY demonstrates right here is, so he stims once, he sees the army, and he immediately stims again, because he's essentially using, he knows he's not going to stay and take a fight. He is just trying to use, like, I guess no better way to describe it except as guerrilla tactics, which is just kind of stimming forward, trying to get some damage done, pick off a unit or something, and then back up. Okay, and those were the 4th and 5th fourth and 5th barracks, and he did make 2 tech labs, so he actually has 4 Marauder production, 2 Marine production, and 2 Widowmine production. So going for a very Marauder, Widowmine heavy army to provide the maximum mobility of the bio army. And on a map like Frost, it has a very open field. It's very easy to, it's very difficult for someone like Deer. Like Deer's army right now is very, it's very flimsy in the fact that it cannot be flanked, otherwise Deer will take a very poor engagement, because once the disruptor shots go off, if you don't have enough disruptor shots just to cover your retreat, then you essentially can lose, and you don't do enough damage with the disruptor shots that you fired, you can essentially lose your entire army by being caught out on the map. So TY has an excellent unit composition to set up flanks, to set up multi-pronged attacks. As we see here in a moment, he is going to be showing that. For now though, his army is bunched up. He has no reason to necessarily attack just yet. His 4th and 5th barracks have just started to kick up their production, so now he's really starting to produce a massive amount of bio units. And there we go. There's his 6th and 7th barracks going down. I wish I wrong time to pause it, but he's really going in this game. He's showing us that you don't need liberators to win in a TvP, especially on a map like this. He hasn't made a single liberator yet, and he's really relying on just bio and the mobility of bio and the utilization of widow mines to zone out the Protoss army in specific areas. Now this is where a situation gets dicey. So what ends up happening here before everything happens is Deer is harassing in TY's main base. Deer is harassing in TY's main base with the depths. TY is attacking Deer's 3rd base with part of his army, and he's going into the main base as well. And Deer's army is kind of caught out of position. Now, normally the Warp Prism harass TY could, or a typical Terran player would be afraid of that, because while you are attacking and your entire army is out on the map, the Warp Prism gets to warp into depths, and then you end up attacking the Protoss player. Your army isn't strong enough, you don't win the game, the adepts kill everything else, and you lose the game. Now the reason why it doesn't happen in this game is because Deer doesn't have a big enough army to be able to defend in both of the spots that TY is attacking, and to also warp in additional units with the Warp Prism. So by just the nature of, I guess, not the nature of anything, but Deer essentially overextends with how much he can attack. He literally cannot afford to attack with this Warp Prism and warp in units without taking significant losses back at home. And as we see this here, not only is his army caught completely out of position, he has some stalkers in the main base to defend, but that's not nearly enough. But the Widow Mines doing a nice little cute job of potentially zoning out the Protoss player and making it, and basically covering the Terran's retreat path, forcing the Protoss to go through it. And he's just essentially able to just quickly pick off the Nexus because he has that 4 Tech Lab Marauder production. We see he has 18 Marauders already. That's a very, very large amount of Marauders. They can DPS the Nexus down very, very fast in high numbers, as we saw there, and just run away. And they have a lot of health too, so that they can afford multiple stims as well. So that multi-pronged attack definitely paid off for TY a lot better, although, oh my gosh, 15 kills on that add-up. Protoss units, man. All jokes aside, though, it is very difficult to clean up adept pressure, especially with the Shade Warpin. So the game is in TY's favor right now because he has a massive economy lead. The main base and the natural at this point are starting to mine out. So Deer was really relying on that third base income to be able to have enough money to establish fourth base. But as a result of not having that income for the duration of the time that the Nexus was not up, he doesn't have the economy to establish a fourth base and to afford to have enough of an army to defend and to have enough money to be able to support another War Prism harassment. So we see here Deer getting ready to attack. He's thinking to himself, TY threw away an okay amount of army, and honestly, I don't know why Deer is attacking here, because if we just examine the situation of the game right now, Deer has just lost his third base, so he's behind economically. TY did not lose a very large chunk of his army. He only lost, I believe, the 2 medevacs in the main base of Deer, and the other medevacs that we see flanking from this area. He basically didn't lose any units there. So I'm not really sure why Deer was attacking here. I guess if we take a look at the units tab, well, and he also did a lot of economic damage as well. So TY's economy might not be as great because he only has 45 SCVs. However, because Deer didn't have his third base, it's taking a while for he needed to basically just wait a little bit longer before starting to commit to a full frontal attack, so that he could really benefit from that economic advantage that he got from the Warp Prism harass. So only attacking with 1, 2, 3. There's only 4 disruptors here as well. He wasn't attacking with his entire army. I think if he just went to the watchtower and then regrouped with his army, he would have been in a much better position. But he's slightly overextended, and now he's fighting. He's committing to the fight as well. So not only did he engage the fight in a bad location initially, he committed to a fight that he was already behind in. The correct decision should have been to move back with his disruptors and to use the disruptor shots to cover his retreat and wait for the next warp-in round to occur, and possibly split off some adepts into TY's third base. So that's the only reason why TY is able to get a good trade-off. I wanted to just make that very clear, that TY was only able to get a good trade-off because he was able to capitalize on Deer's overcommitment with his army and his attack, and able to take a good trade because of it. And now TY is feeling safe enough to establish that fourth base and lift his command. He's lifting his command center off because he doesn't have enough money for the fourth base. The Warp Prism Harass did do a lot of damage, and this map is very difficult to take a fourth base as well. Although we do see two command centers at the third base. I believe, yeah, those are 2 command centers on the mini-map. So I believe he's going to expand it relatively soon again. Or his idea was, because he's in a defensive position, he's just going to expand very fast because he can't attack for the immediate time being. So we see TY now exhibiting the patience that Deer should have shown us earlier on in the previous fight. And now TY, he knew that Deer's army was out in the center of the map, and only then did he choose to reveal his little bio hit squad and snipe off Deer's third Nexus again. And now Deer is in a lot of trouble, and he's essentially forced to try to attack into TY and try to end the game because he doesn't have enough money to secure his 4th base. Now, I really like how TY handles this. This is just him showing that he's the smarter player. He knows that he has the better economy, and he knows that this is Deer's last army, and if killing Deer's and by killing Deer's army, that army right here that's out in the middle of the map, then he essentially wins the game. And so what TY is saying by pulling these SCVs is he killed Deer's 3rd base, so TY can sacrifice all of those SCVs, and as long as he still has his bases running, like he can kill those SCVs. He still has a 4th base, so it'll still be 3 bases mining, or like I guess a 3 base situation, but really only 1 base mining versus 0 bases mining. Whereas if he didn't sacrifice the SCVs, it would be 2 bases mining versus 0 bases mining. So TY is taking a very safe approach to winning this game, not letting Deer have any wiggle room to potentially come back in this series by pulling these SCVs. It's a very smart safety move to help secure his advantage in this game and ultimately the win. So SCVs get pulled. Nice little micro by TY. The moral of the story, though, is that Deer overextended, and TY, his very mobile army, was able to capitalize on the situation. So GG is called, and we got to take a look at TY's biomine style and how he was relying more heavily on marauders and widow mines, and how he was kind of being a very big pest by not directly engaging against Deer's army at very many times. The only time he really did directly engage against Deer's army was when Deer was overcommitting. TY understood that, and he knew that he could capitalize on the advantage, but almost in every other situation before that, he did not commit to a full attack. They were just run-bys, light harass, fast stim in, stim outs. So TY just exhibiting very smart decision making in all of his decisions, both with his unit control, his unit positioning, and his choice of build. GG. Oops. Later, guys.